What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2023 predictions. The Oregon Ducks are up next. Let's take a look at some of the other predictions for the Ducks. FPI has them at 9.1 and 3.3. So roughly 9 and 3. About a 40% chance to make the Pac-12 championship, so they're pretty high on this team. Athlon has them at 9 and 3. The over/under is at 9.5. So 9 and 3 seems to be about where you can expect Oregon. Maybe 10 and 2. Again, the over/under right there at 9.5. My thoughts on this team: I think they're going to be really good. And you look at the offensive side. Bo Nix, of course, back at quarterback. They've got plenty of weapons around him. A nice group of wide receivers, really solid there. Deep running back as well. Bucky Irving, of course, coming back. I was worried about the offensive line at first this offseason, but now that they've added some guys in the transfer portal, I think the offensive line is going to be really solid for them. So this is going to be an explosive offense. They're going to score a ton of points. You look at the defense, I think they're going to be really good there as well. Defensive line, they've got some stars. Linebacker, maybe not a great unit when you look at their linebackers, but they're solid. And then they have a ton of depth in the secondary as well. So this should be a good defense and a really good offense. And again, I think this is one of the better teams in the country. You look at the schedule, it's a little tricky there with Texas Tech in the non-conference. And then, of course, no divisions in the Pac-12. They're going to play Washington, Utah, and USC. So they'll play the other top teams in the Pac-12, also Oregon State. They don't play UCLA, so I guess that's the one good thing here. But I think they'll start off with an easy win over Portland State and get off to a 1-0 start. And then Texas Tech on September 9th. And I've said this now for a while. I really feel like this is going to be a good game. I think there are a lot of people that think Oregon is just going to go in there and roll and have an easy win. I disagree. This Texas Tech team is going to be good. They're a veteran team. They have a lot of guys back. They're going to be playing at home. So this is definitely one of those games that Oregon has got to bring their A game if they're going to have a chance to win. I believe that Texas Tech has a legitimate chance to pull off this upset. And maybe there was a time where I actually would have picked Texas Tech, but again, the question marks that I had earlier this offseason with the offensive line, I think Oregon's done a nice job of getting some guys in the transfer portal, and that was one of the areas I was concerned for Oregon going up against this Texas Tech defense. But I think they've done a nice job there, and the offense is going to be a little too explosive, but I think it'll be close. I'm going to take Oregon, but again, I do think that'll be a close, probably one-score type game. And then I think they beat Hawaii as well, so they get off to a 3-0 start before playing Colorado on September 23rd. They'll get this game at home. I do think this Colorado team has upgraded their overall roster, but I still think they have a long ways to go in competing with a team like Oregon. I think Oregon wins pretty big, and I think they get off to a 4-0 start. Then they'll play Stanford. I talked about it. This might be the worst Power 5 team this year. They're playing on the road. I know Stanford has given Oregon trouble in the past. I don't see that happening this year. I don't think this Stanford team is going to be very good. I think Oregon will make a statement. They'll win easy and get off to a 5-0 start before a bye week. Comes at a good time, too, before a very tough game against Washington. You look at Washington, they're also going to have a really explosive offense. You look at these two offenses, Oregon and Washington, both look really, really good. Defenses look really good as well. I would give Oregon maybe an advantage in the secondary. I give Washington an advantage in the front seven, but I mean, it's just going to be a really even matchup. I think both of these teams are potential playoff teams, potential top 10 teams this year, and I think this is going to be a battle. I think this will be, it's a rivalry game. You can expect a close one, probably down to the last play. But at the end of the day, Bo Nix versus Michael Penix, who would you take in that matchup? I mean, it's virtually a tie. They're both really good. But when you look at Bo Nix and his past, he hasn't played as well on the road. And I think that might be the difference here. This is one where I would pick the home team regardless of if it was at Washington or at Oregon. I would be picking the home team. I'm going to pick Washington here. I think they beat Oregon and give them their first loss of the season. Washington State comes up next on October 21st. I think Oregon bounces back. Just too much offense for Washington State. Maybe a somewhat competitive game for a while, but I think Oregon will pull away in the second half and get a big win. And then you've got another really tough game. Here is Utah on the road on October 28th. So Washington and Utah both on the road here in a 3-week span or 2-week span, whatever. So this is going to be a really tough one as well. Utah, you know how they're going to play. It's not going to be as the Oregon-Washington game, I'm expecting a shootout. This game, I think Utah is going to try to slow it down. But we saw them last year get into some games where they could score points when they needed to. Cam Rising back at quarterback. This is another game where I would just kind of go with a home field advantage because I think it's a really even matchup. Again, if this game was at Oregon, I'd take the Ducks. But at Utah, I'm going to go with Utah. And I think Oregon loses their second game here. And again, I've said this in some of the other videos, or I guess it was the USC video. These schedules are really tough when you're talking about 4 top 10 teams potentially in the Pac-12, and Oregon, Washington, Utah, and USC, and then you've also got Oregon State and UCLA in there. The Pac-12 is going to be really good this year. I think it's probably going to be the 3rd best Power 5 conference, at least if you look at their top 6 teams. And so it's just going to be a gauntlet. It's going to be tough, and that's why I think it's going to be hard for a Pac-12 team to come out of that conference undefeated or with 1 loss. And I think Oregon, if they played in the Big 12, there's a good chance they go undefeated, good chance that they are in the college football playoff. But in this Pac-12 with these tough games, I just think it's going to be tough. So I think they lose their second game there, and then they get Cal on November the 4th. This will be a veteran, deep Cal team. I've talked about them, but Oregon just too explosive offensively. Cal's not going to be able to win a shootout, I don't think. So I think Oregon wins this game, and they improve to 7-2. After that, it's USC on the 11th. You talk about a shootout. I think we're going to see one here. Really even matchup. I think both of these teams are, again, they're top 10 type teams. I think USC might be a tad better just overall, but can they do what they need to do on defense? Can they improve on that side of the ball? If they can, then potentially they could win this game if they're a lot better there, because I think the offense, I'm not worried about that. But again, it's one of these games. It's going to be a shootout, back and forth, back and forth. I'm just going to go with the home team because I think it's a really even matchup, and that is Oregon. So I think they beat USC. So out of those 3 games, Washington, Utah, and USC, 2 of them being on the road really makes it tough for Oregon. If you flip Utah or Washington to a home game, perhaps they could get through this schedule at 11-1, but I don't know that they're going to be able to do it. Arizona State there on the 18th on the road. Arizona State's added a lot of transfers. This is a team that's going to be better than I think some people expect when you look at how bad they were last year. And this will be a tough one, I think, for Oregon early on. Maybe they struggle a little bit coming off of that big win over USC right before a rivalry game against Oregon State. So maybe it's close early. But then in the second half, I think Bo Nix, he plays better. This is one of those games where Bo Nix might struggle in the past playing on the road and have a really bad game, and Oregon might would lose, or even going back to his days at Auburn. You look at some of those games. But, he's grown up. He's a veteran, and this will be a test for him. But I think Oregon finds a way to win this one on the road. And again, you go back to some of these other road games. I don't think Stanford's going to be an issue. But again, Washington, Utah are going to be really tough. And also Texas Tech. How's Bo Nix going to play on the road there? That could be interesting as well. They'll close things out with Oregon State. Rivalry game to close out the season. I felt like Oregon was the better team last year. They just did not play well. They were up early, and then Oregon State just got the momentum and wound up pulling off that upset. And so I think Oregon, again, this year is the better team, and they're playing at home, so I don't think they're going to let this one slip away. But Oregon State's going to be a good team. They're going to be probably a top 25 team. This won't be easy. I think it'll be a very close game, but I think Oregon will find a way to get it done at home, win their rivalry game, and finish 10-2. So that's my prediction for Oregon. Give me your thoughts, your predictions down in the comments below.